So it's been a super busy, super exciting, and stressful to some degree week of sports and competition. At the first part of the week, my son had a tournament and thankfully won both games because it's very stressful being a mom in the stands and just yelling and hoping and all of that. And then it's been followed up with my twins team, who is an eighth grade team, also in a tournament. And so today is their final game. They made it to the championship, and we are about to take on another team that is pretty good. So it's been making me think a lot about competition and how that relates to our world. It's kind of a weird topic, so I'll cover that at some point. Well, my girls did win the championship game. It was so exciting and so close, and I was a basket case. In fact, I videotaped the whole thing, and at one point I was screaming at one of my girls, "Get on 14! Get on 14!" And she's nodding to me, but she wasn't on 14. I'm like, "You gotta stop her!" And she's just like, and I couldn't believe my craziness, but it was fun. And what was funnier is that the game before that, my girls actually beat out another team whose daughter is on the team of a friend of mine who's also a mystic and a mom. And we were sitting next to each other beforehand and just laughing about this whole competition thing. And our girls were about to compete against each other and play. And all of this, like, light and love and, is right out the window anyway. And so I gave her a big hug as we shared some moments, and then I went and sat on my side, right? So this whole competition thing is really bizarre because as much as I can engage in it and get so excited, I have never really been a competitive person. In fact, as a child, I remember loving gymnastics. In fact, I was really good, really flexible. I was so flexible, I did what they called a chest pose. So I was able to bend all the way back and then literally put my head between my ankles and hold on to them as I looked, right? I was that flexible. And then, of course, here is the balance beam and then the parallel bars and all of this, beautiful, scary artistry. As it became a little bit more competitive, or this idea of competition came into gymnastics, that's really when I decided to quit. I loved the expression and the movement and the challenge. I did not like the idea of having to compete against someone else. As well, when I was younger, I remember doing any kind of physical fitness that it wasn't about, getting the best grade when it was the physical fitness test. It was sort of like run until you get to the point that says now you have a D and then walk the rest of the way, right? I wasn't interested in being number one in that sense. Um, anyway, so it just has really been coming up a lot for me because my kids are such competitors and they're such athletes, which again, I don't know where they got it. And this coming week, we're actually going to go out to go see my daughter swim in the Pac-12 conference. And she's in the top 8. She should make finals. And anyway, it's like, wow. And it's such a weird topic, isn't it? It's such a weird topic. So obviously, as a non-competitor, I am by far not an authority. However, when I look at the energy of competition from a more spiritual aspect, when I read into the energy, I'm really seeing two different strands. Right, the first is more or less a joyful, competitive, playful strand, and that energy of playfulness and joy and pushing ourselves to a limit, whether it's how far can I stretch myself, how many baskets can I make, how fast can I swim, how many millions of dollars can I make, or whatever. Those aspects are what sort of drives us to perform to a certain capacity, to become better because it feels fun and joyful. The other energy of competition is more based on sort of a survival kind of a nature. So in other words, in essence, competition often indicates some kind of lack. There's only one first place. There's only one winner. There's only one deer, and so I'm competing with somebody else to hunt that deer so that I can feed my family. But, if I want to go back to this tribal aspect, many times tribes would share. It wasn't like, oh, there's only one and it's either you or me who gets it. It's we can work together to get this food for our families, right? But as we become more fear-based, we become more inclined to think there is only one, and it becomes an either or, right? And then the last thing I want to share about this, because interestingly enough, this came up for me yesterday. I have a team of a few women who we meet with on a regular basis to talk about whole soul revolution. And one of my sort of fears, one of my concerns is that I don't want to have anyone follow me in the sense that, oh, Veronica says, or, to create some kind of teaching that people then, follow, right? And it's not that I don't have teachings. I believe we all have things to bring forth, to teach, to share. But what I really don't want is to become sort of this authority figure, or to use my authority in some way that says, hey, I have the answers, and here, if you do these things, you will then be happy. And again, every time I bring this issue up as we're forming, this movement, Whole Soul Revolution, this show, Whole Soul Revolution, this idea, the resistance in me to fall into that trap, that egoic trap, arises, where I say, hey, I'm really concerned. And of course, my team members are like, but you're not like that. You are ultra concerned and conscious about that. And you are often mentioning it. So I'm not really understanding why you are concerned about it. And what hit me as I was sharing this is that it would be so easy for me to say, hey, I have a method. I have a method that if you do this, if you do that, if you do the next thing, I promise, or you will get to have this kind of experience. You will then become joyful. You will then become rich. You will then become slim. You will then become enlightened, right? That I could essentially, package up something and say, here, buy this, and I promise you the world. And as much as that doesn't resonate with me, my own human fear of, wow, but I could make money that way, and people could easily follow me, and I could easily, lead people somewhere, because it would be the brainless, easy thing to do, where people, get to taste something based on a promise of something. And the reason I keep bringing it up, I was sharing with the group, is that, when I look at my own financial situation, when I look at, oh my gosh, I can't afford rent, I can't afford, to get groceries this week, or whatever's coming up for me that are very real, it would be so easy to go that method, to go that route. And what happens in terms of this competitive piece is, when I see another, person who's spiritually minded, who creates some kind of program, there's this part of me that goes, oh, I could create that. Oh, I could create that. Oh, I could do something like that. And it's not that any of those things are wrong. It's not at all to judge that anything that people create to sell, to offer, is wrong. It's really about, what is the bottom line for me in terms of what is it that I'm here to bring, and how can I bring something through that is clear and pristine and in integrity. So in terms of competition, when we look at it from a fearful aspect, when we believe there's only one, place, one first place, or whatever, we have the tendency to perhaps cheat, right? To cheat. And interestingly enough, we could win that title by cheating. And the question is, do we want to win at any cost? As one of the other coaches in my daughter's little league, I heard her literally tell her team, anything it takes, anything it takes. And maybe she meant that in a very open way, but based on what I've seen in her practices, I don't think so. So competition, in essence, for me, is really much more fun when it's my children competing in sports, and when it's done with fun and with a sense of game and in a sense of playfulness, but also when there are rules that we stay within, or better yet, with some form of integrity, whatever that might mean. And on a personal aspect, when I look at my business, I don't necessarily want to be competitive. I really do like this idea that we are, working together, and that when we step into who we are, it uplifts everyone. When we cheat who we are, when we cheat in the world, it affects everyone, because in essence, we are pulling back from our true nature. So again, I'm not the authority. I just wanted to throw some ideas out there, and perhaps you can see what you come up with. Do a little meditation, do a little contemplation, breathe in and feel into, what is competition? What does this mean? Not just generically, but for me. Where am I using competition to push myself forward, and where am I at risk to allow my ego to get in the way, or my fear to get in the way, to suddenly start cheating on something in some way, so that I could therefore win? What is it that we're winning?